A 14-year-old girl described being brought to a wealthy man's house. She was promised quick cash for a massage. From the outside, this looked like paradise. Blue water, private beaches, luxury villas, a place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. But this wasn't paradise. It was a crime scene. And for years, everyone pretended not to see it. Private planes landed here. Powerful men arrived. Money erased consequences. And the people who could have stopped it didn't. This is where the Epstein story really begins. Not with a crime, but with protection. Tonight we uncover how Jeffrey Epstein didn't survive by hiding. He survived because the system chose not to look. I'm Masood. Welcome to Real America Files. In 1998, public property records show an American man bought a 75-acre island for about $8 million. U.S. Virgin Islands, Caribbean, Little St. James. On the map, it was just a dot. On the water, it looked like a resort, a main bungalow, guest villas, 2 pools, a gym, a helipad, everything designed to signal safety. But according to court records and victim statements, a different story was living underneath the luxury. Local residents weren't calling it a getaway. They were calling it something darker, a place where girls, some underage, were trafficked and sexually abused. The island's isolation did the rest. Water on all sides, no neighbors, no cameras the public could access, no easy escape. One girl, according to later accounts, tried to get away by sea. She didn't make it. And then comes the detail that turns this from crime into system failure. Who showed up? Not anonymous strangers. People with money, people with status, people who knew how to move through the world without being questioned. Billionaires, celebrities, high-profile visitors, names that have appeared in public reporting around Epstein for years. Prince Andrew, Stephen Hawking, Chris Tucker, and others. Parties were hosted, guests were flown in, silence was maintained. But the question that matters is simple. Who owned the island?
Jeffrey.
The answer is one name, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein didn't start as a household villain. For a time, he looked ordinary. He taught math in Brooklyn. Then his life changed. Suddenly he wasn't teaching. He was advising billionaires, and the money followed. He built a fortune. He built access. He built relationships with political power. Names tied to his circle have included Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak.
Any comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
And here is the point most people miss. This story isn't only about what happened on an island. It's about what happened in the American justice system. Because everything on that island stayed hidden for years, until 2005. A single complaint in Palm Beach, Florida, triggered a chain reaction the system couldn't ignore. March 2005. According to police reports, a 14-year-old girl described being brought to a wealthy man's house. She was promised quick cash for a massage, $200 to $300. But once she arrived, the situation changed. According to her account, she was sexually abused, and the police didn't treat it like a one-off. They asked the question that exposes a network. Who else? She gave names, investigators spoke to those girls, more names surfaced, then more. A chain that wouldn't stop. Officers later described it as organized recruitment, a pyramid. A girl is paid extra to bring another girl, that girl brings another, and the pipeline grows quietly, without a street corner, without a visible operation. Within months, the Palm Beach police chief identified about 35 victims.
She led me up a staircase and we made a right into Jeffrey's room, and Jeffrey laying naked on the massage table.
And investigators believed the number was still rising. One victim later described realizing she had revealed vulnerability, and that vulnerability was exactly what made her a target.
I really wanted this job, so I opened up to them. I said, look, this is an opportunity of a lifetime for me. I've been on the streets, I've been abused, and that's the worst thing that I could have done, because I just let them know that I'm vulnerable and I'm their perfect type.
Police saw it clearly. This wasn't random. It was a system. By May 2006, local police prepared a case against Epstein, strong enough that by July 2006,
I was 16 years old. I was 16.
17, 14 years old. This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
dozens of minors. Under normal rules, a man facing this volume of evidence should have spent the rest of his life behind bars. But normal rules are not what happened next. because behind the scenes, a second system was operating, a legal system built for negotiation. According to later reporting and filings, Miami's federal prosecutor, Alexander Acosta, entered secret discussions with Epstein's lawyers. A deal began to form, not to expose the full scope, to contain it. Epstein pleaded guilty to lesser charges, a reduced sentence, and in return, the agreement granted sweeping protection, immunity that blocked broader criminal prosecution. The most shocking part wasn't the leniency, it was the secrecy. The deal was sealed, no one could read it. Even the victims, the girls at the center of the case, were not told. And under American law, victims have rights to be informed, to be heard, to be included. In this case, the system moved without them, which is why the Epstein story truly begins here, not with the island, not even with the crime, but with the... Under US law, victims are supposed to be notified when prosecutors negotiate deals that affect the case. In this case, they weren't. According to later court findings in federal review, the agreement was kept out of public view while the people harmed by it were left in the dark. Then came the court date, June 30th, Epstein appeared, accepted a plea to 2 lesser charges, and received an 18-month sentence. Only 18 months. According to jail records and later reporting, he was housed in a private wing at the Palm Beach County Jail. And the conditions weren't what most people imagine when they hear jail. He was approved for work release. Day after day, he left custody for long stretches, returning at night to sleep. In practical terms, it meant the punishment was contained. The optics were public. The reality was private, and before the sentence even ran its full course, he was out. July 2009, released early. All of it traced back to the same sealed deal, the same closed-door negotiation, and the same federal official whose name kept appearing in the background, Alexander Acosta. Years later, Acosta would re-enter the public spotlight through national politics, and in the eyes of many Americans, that wasn't a coincidence. It looked like a reward. Then the story went quiet again. For years, Epstein lived like nothing had happened. Private jets, private parties, private access to powerful people. A case with dozens of victims had turned into a conviction designed for survivability. And if the story ended there, the lesson would be brutal. The villain escapes, but it didn't end there, because one person refused to let the file stay buried. An investigative reporter. According to published reporting, journalist Julie K. Brown at the Miami Herald spent years rebuilding what the deal tried to erase. She tracked victims, she gathered documents, she reconstructed timelines, she put names and procedures back under public light. Then, in late 2018, the reporting hit. Not a single article, a series, a sustained investigation into what happened and how the system helped it happen. Public reaction was immediate. Pressure rose, questions spread, and the case reopened its oxygen supply. Federal prosecutors in New York began moving again. According to the reporting, more victims came forward. More accounts were documented. More patterns were placed into the record. Then, in July 2019, Epstein was arrested again. This time, the charges were federal, sex trafficking, and this time, the system did not offer him a quiet exit. But then came the moment that changed everything. August 10th, 2019, Epstein was found dead in custody. Authorities ruled it a suicide.
The disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Epstein took his own life while he was behind bars facing charges of sex trafficking.
The Department of Justice released surveillance-related material and statements meant to support that conclusion. But instead of closing the story, it ignited a second one. Because in America, when a powerful defendant dies before trial, the public doesn't just ask what happened, they ask what would have happened, and the questions multiplied. Why did key safeguards fail? Why were protocols missed? Why did the system lose control at the most critical moment? Online, theories spread fast. Some claimed it was murder, some claimed a cover-up, some claimed he held damaging information about powerful people.
The video was released by the Department of Justice to prove that no one entered Epstein's cell before he was found dead, and that he really did take his own life. But it's only fueling more conspiracy theory.
None of those theories are verdicts, but they reveal something real, a collapse of trust, because the Epstein case had already taught the public one lesson. When power enters the room, normal rules stop working. And after his death, the case became political currency. Public figures promised transparency. Commentators demanded files. Supporters of different camps insisted the truth would vindicate their side. But the most consistent reality was this. The public kept
Would you declassify the Epstein Files?
asking for sunlight, and the system kept offering shadows, because even when documents surface, they often arrive redacted, names removed, dates blacked out, details sealed behind procedure. And that brings us to the core question that refuses to die. If the system could negotiate a sealed deal once, if it could restrict consequences once, if it could protect the process instead of the victims once, then what else was contained, and who, exactly, benefited from that containment? Under US law, victims are supposed to be notified when prosecutors negotiate a deal that changes the outcome of a case. In Epstein's case, they weren't, and then came the plea. June 30th. Epstein appeared in court, pleaded guilty to 2 lesser charges,
It's pretty boring stuff. Democrat hoax that never ends.
and received an 18-month sentence. On paper, only 18 months, but the sentence wasn't built like punishment. According to records and later reporting, he was housed in a private wing at the Palm Beach County Jail. He was granted work release, not a rare emergency exception, a routine schedule. Out during the day, back at night, a jail sentence that functioned like a curfew. Then, before the public could even understand what had happened, he was out. July 2009. Released early. That outcome wasn't an accident. It was engineered through a sealed agreement negotiated behind closed doors, tied to federal decision makers. And one name continued to follow the deal. Alexander Acosta. Years later, Acosta reappeared on the national stage as U.S. Secretary of Labor, fueling public suspicion that the system didn't punish the failure. It promoted it. And for years after his release, Epstein lived like the case had never existed. Private jets, lavish parties, proximity to power, a story that in any normal system should have ended with accountability, ended with escape, until one journalist refused to let the file stay buried. Miami Herald investigative reporter Julie K. Brown. In late 2018, her reporting reopened the public's memory and rebuilt the timeline the sealed deal tried to erase. The reaction was immediate. Public pressure surged, politicians demanded answers, and federal prosecutors in New York moved again. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. This time there was no quiet deal, but then the case reached the moment that changed everything. August 10th, 2019. Epstein was found dead in custody. The official finding was suicide, but the timing detonated a second scandal, because when a powerful defendant dies before trial, the public doesn't just ask what happened, they ask what didn't get answered, and online theories spread faster than facts. Some claimed murder, some claimed a cover-up, some claimed the files would implicate powerful people. Those claims are not verdicts, but they reveal something real, a collapse of trust. Because the Epstein story had already proven one thing: when power enters the room, normal rules stop working. After his death, that distrust became political fuel. Calls for full transparency grew louder, and pressure pushed the Department of Justice toward public disclosure through a federal transparency law and a growing congressional fight over what should be released and what should remain redacted. By late 2025, the public expected clarity, but what arrived instead were documents with heavy redactions, black bars over names, dates, and critical context. And when people read what they could, the outrage didn't fade, it evolved. Because the most explosive material wasn't always clean evidence. It was fragments, emails, contacts, unverified tips, allegations without courtroom testing. Officials acknowledged that the released materials included horrific content, but they said the disclosures did not establish grounds for new criminal charges unless new credible evidence emerges. That created a new kind of pressure, not just to release more, but to explain the redactions, to explain the delays, to explain why a case this big still ends in shadows. And that is the final twist. The Epstein story doesn't stay alive because of rumors. It stays alive because the system keeps producing the same outcome: partial truth, controlled disclosures, institutional protection, and the people who could have ended it cleanly didn't. In the files that were released, entire pages are swallowed by black ink, lines erased, names removed, dates missing, context cut in half. The government called it redaction, a necessary shield, but in multiple instances, the redactions didn't even hold. In document after document, basic digital handling errors left fragments visible. Not because of genius, not because of advanced hacking, because of sloppy process, layers placed wrong, text still searchable underneath, copy and paste artifacts that should have been scrubbed, a system trying to control disclosure, and failing at the mechanics. And that failure creates one question that won't go away. What else is being hidden? Not rumors, records, travel logs, contact books, calendars, notes, lists, the kind of evidence that doesn't need a speech. It needs daylight, because if powerful people were protected once, they can be protected again. And if the public is only allowed to see what's convenient, then the truth becomes a product, released in fragments, controlled by procedure, delayed by design. Over time, more material may surface, more names, more connections, more proof of who knew what and when. And when that happens, the story won't be about Epstein. It will be about the system that kept his world intact. That's it for now. But the file isn't closed. It's still being managed.